Hello friends, and welcome back to the Hall of Craft! Today I want to talk to you about cutting foam. That's something I do a lot on this channel, something I thought I had figured out until now. A recent channel has popped up. You probably know him, you probably love him. It is the Bard's Craft. He is the sweetheart of the Tabletop Crafters Guild over the last couple months. He's got some crazy radical views and some crazy radical techniques, and one of which is really blowing my mind. So I thought that I should really test it out for the good of myself and hopefully the good of all my North American friends out there, because this technique is how he cuts foam. So he does not use a proxon. He does not use a utility knife. Two tools that I have built this channel around using pretty much, and he uses a kitchen knife. So I myself have a kitchen knife, and I have found that it is particularly difficult to cut foam with because it is too thick. However, his technique requires that you buy a whetstone and grind the kitchen knife down so that it becomes less of a wedge and more of like a fine point. And once you do that, he says that you can cut any foam with it no matter what. And if you can't, then you are a cutting noob, I think, as he says it. So today I'm going to find out if I am a cutting noob or if he is just too bold and doesn't understand North American foams. Because the pink stuff and the blue stuff that we have available in North America are much more dense than the green Styrodur, I believe it is called, that they have available in Europe. And it is so soft. So I haven't actually got my hands on the Styrodur before, but everyone that has says that it is incredibly soft enough that you can draw on with a pencil and draw your details in like that, which is something you can definitely not do in the North American foams that I have available to me. So today I bought a whetstone, I have my handy kitchen knife, I'm going to grind it down for all of us so that we can finally know whether he is right or I'm just a cutting noob. Let's just jump right into it. So the first thing I did is I bought myself a whetstone off of Amazon. It was like $25–30 Canadian. Not too bad at all, actually. Pretty affordable, and now I have it forever. So if I ever want to grind down some more knives to be foam cutting machines, then I have that at my disposal. But first I have to grind this knife down. So as per the Bard's instructions, I'm going to be grinding this horizontally on the whetstone. The instructions on the whetstone instruct you to grind at a 10 to 30 degree angle and having the blade facing down, but that is to make the blade sharper, and we are not necessarily trying to make the blade sharper here. We are just trying to make the blade flatter so that it can cut through the foam without as much friction of the foam pulling in on itself, which is why the kitchen knife doesn't work as is. So I take the whetstone on the higher grit side, which is 1,000, because lower is more coarse and higher is less coarse. So on the 1,000 side, I'm grinding the knife horizontally, and I found this to be quite the process. So I'm flipping every once in a while to make sure that both sides are getting ground fairly evenly, but the manual that comes with the whetstone refers to the excess that comes off as you grind as mud. It is just the watered down steel powder that comes off the knife, and the mud got everywhere. It got all over my hands, it got all over the table, it got all over the whetstone itself. I found myself having to wash the whetstone quite a bit. I don't think this happens as much if you're just using the whetstone to sharpen a blade, but because we're using it to grind a blade down to be skinnier, oh my god, so much mud. So that was a bit of an annoyance. I found myself wearing gloves halfway through because it was just getting all up in my fingernails and everything, but not so bad. What was a bit of a hassle was how long it took. So I'm not sure whether he has a higher grade whetstone than I did or not, but the Bard's Craft recommends or suggests that it would only take like an hour and a half. I found it actually took more like 2.5 to 3 hours. I had just tossed up an episode of Critical Role while I was plugging away on this thing, and it took me the better part of the episode to get this knife to a point that I was happy with. So yeah, quite an intensive process. Also, it requires a lot of effort on your part, a lot of like upper body, arm motion, because it's not just enough to like slide the blade across. You kind of have to push down if you want, a result of the grinding to happen faster. So after finishing the knife, my arms were actually pretty tired. Maybe I'm just weak, but it certainly felt like quite the process while I was doing it, and I wasn't sure if it was going to work. So part of my head was thinking, oh my gosh, if I spend all this time and effort doing this, if I waste my Saturday just grinding this knife down and it doesn't even work, I'm going to be so unhappy. But I powered through because I wanted to know the answer, and I hope that you guys want to know the answer too. So let's take this knife now that it is ready to go and see if it's actually gonna be the foam cutting machine that he says it will be. Okay, so now all of that hard work is done. It is time to see if it was worth it. So we have our knife here. It looks pretty good. I'll try and hold it in focus here so you can get a good look at it, but it is quite shiny now. It is ground down. It is much skinnier than it was at the start. You can tell because any of the writing that was on the blade before is totally gone. That metal is gone, and with the amount of mud that came off of the blade, there's no doubt that this thing is quite a lot skinnier than it was before. So now it is time to see if it works. One last thing I'm going to do first is I'm going to take out my Kershaw knife sharpener here because I find sharp blades work pretty well, so I'm going to make sure this thing's sharp. I'm going to take some WD-40 and just kind of grease up the knife sharpener real quick, and then just slide my blade across it a couple times. And then I'll just hold it up here so you can kind of get a look at this thing and inspect it a little bit. Alright, so now it's time to cut. Moment of truth. I have some of the blue polystyrene and some of the pink polystyrene. I'm gonna try and squish it here so that you can see just how much more dense this is. The pink stuff doesn't squish at all. I'm pressing pretty hard on it and it is not even budging. And the blue stuff has a little bit more give to it, but it's also pretty dense. The Bard's Craft suggests using drawing cuts, which is kind of like you're pushing it straight through. You're almost putting no pressure down. You're cutting it like a chef would cut an onion. And using a kitchen knife, that makes a lot of sense. This is working pretty well. It's taking me a little bit to understand the technique, but it's actually cutting through the blue stuff fairly decently. I'm actually pretty impressed with this knife. This is getting pretty straight. It's not ripping too much. Cutting like this with a utility knife would be pretty challenging, and you wouldn't be able to get it like this. I find cutting with a utility knife, I have to make many passes and many small passes and getting slowly deeper and deeper with each cut. With the kitchen knife, you can chop it up like it was an onion, and it's working pretty well. The more I practice with it here, the more the technique is working better. My first couple cuts are a little rough, but the more I play around with it, the better it works. The Bard might be onto something with this one, guys. Let's try the pink stuff now. So the pink stuff actually cuts pretty nicely too. I was a little concerned there, but you know what? This is working. This is working. I can see this working pretty well. This might become a permanent staple in my toolbox. And after how much time I spent grinding it down, I'm feeling pretty satisfied with the result here. It's a different technique than what I'm used to. With the utility knife, like I said, I really have to like pull along, but with this knife, you're not pulling at all. You're only pushing through. No pulling, no pushing down. Here's what it looks like if you push down. It's not like it doesn't cut. It just compresses the foam. So it's not the fact that the knife is incredibly sharp, although it is sharp. It is more about how you push through the foam. This works pretty well on both foams. I'm very impressed. One thing I guess the Bard's Craft skips over is that the sharpness of the knife is important. Not for pushing down, but for cutting through. I find that after I'm making like 5 or 6 cuts, it's starting to tear the foam a little bit more, and then I have to go back to the Kershaw knife sharpener and kind of readjust the sharpness a little bit, and then it starts cutting a lot more finely and a lot more pristinely. One thing that the Barscraft seems to be able to do with his foam is just kind of like hold it up in the air and cut the knife through it. I'm not finding that to be able to be done with the blue foam here, and I don't have thick enough pink foam to try it, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. It also feels very unsafe while I'm doing it, especially with how sharp this knife is after all the time I've spent on it. So I like all my fingers and I want to keep them, so I'm going to stick to cutting on the table with drying cuts. And that's all there is to this video, friends. I hope you guys found this informative. I know that I wanted to run this experiment for myself because just having someone say it'll be good, don't worry about it, is not good enough for me and my skeptical brain. So hopefully, without a doubt, you can feel at ease to try this technique for yourself. And thank you to the Barscraft for suggesting it. I'm sorry I didn't trust you. I'm just cynical. It's not you, it's me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and leave me a like if you had a good time. I'd really appreciate that. I need the YouTube algorithm on my side. I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great week.